Cheers, 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 cheers. What?
Cheers to Jason.
Whoa, your video is very laggy, but yep, Jason, this is for you, and we love you very much. All right, 3, 2, 1, boom.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Podland episode 8. Today we are down a member. Jason, unfortunately, he had the potential to do his flu game, but he was pretty busy.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Gingrey.
Gingrey. I always think of
I'm sure this is like borderline doxing.
Yeah. I was just wondering, Jason. Okay, if you're listening to this,
Jay, you can bleep this.
No, Jason, don't. This is small talk between two friends who miss you very much. So please, you don't have to delete this. But
today it is Nick and Ian, the first duo pod. How are we feeling?
No, this is the second duo pod, but this is the first duo between you and I.
Who was the?
It was the Adam Project. You and Jason captained.
Oh right, I forgot.
Yep.
See, it's all a blur.
Yeah. No, you were testing the audience.
The interesting one's gonna be when I'm out and it's you and Jay.
Jason and I know each other probably the most out of all three of us. So no, I'm kidding. I just met Jason like last year and I completely forgot who he was until we started this podcast, and it's been great so far. So Jason, I love you if you're listening to this. So
he's gonna have to edit it.
Right. Nick, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I just finished an episode of Better Call Saul. Ooh. Season 6, episode 3, for those who understand. Just going through a lot. That was a really rough watch. I don't want to spoil anything.
Put it on Breaking Bad level terms, because I am not caught up to you in it. So
I don't even want to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's like a testament within itself, just, right there.
Yeah. So. Yeah. This is a little later than typically. We'd record first and then I'd watch the episode. So we're doing it kind of in reverse order tonight.
Yeah.
How are you? I went golfing last weekend. So have you hit the links yet?
No, I've just been to the range. So the range has been good. And honestly, that 80-degree day on Saturday, I think the whole state of Michigan needed that. So and
then it immediately started raining the next day.
I think in terms of like, if we're ranking states via population mental health, Michigan is like dead last right now. Like Michigan, it goes Michigan at the bottom, what you think is the bottom, and then Jason's below Michigan because of the travel that he's had recently.
Yeah, but I have no sympathy for him. The man lives in Orange County. Yeah, we seriously are doxing him.
Yeah, we are.
You know his county and his last name. Goodness gracious, sorry.
I was just wondering how he said, Jason, okay? I'm sorry I never asked you personally, but... All right.
So, some news.
Some sad news.
This week. Not a lot, but Netflix is in a little bit of a pickle now.
Yep.
To say the least. I want to start off by saying that they just did like their quarterly like release.
Yep.
And so this is the first time that they have lost this many subscribers in a quarter, and they have lost 200,000 subscribers since January, which I think probably comes with the price hike that happened end of January, beginning of February, where they went from like 15 16 a month. Now it's at 20 a month.
Lot of shareholders withdrew from Netflix. You can say it's because of that. It's because of them cracking down on password sharing between accounts and people who are not in the same household.
The way that they're doing that's super interesting too, because they're not even like removing it; they're just billing you more.
Yeah, exactly. Which
is interesting. So
you would think that it'd be the other way around, because, in my head that makes the most sense. But I guess they got to win back some money somehow. So
Yeah.
But the biggest thing in my eyes is that a lot of the content that they're pumping out these days is just, it's being killed. Like what seems the beginning or at least halfway through the project. So
Yeah, like I just saw recent like a whole bunch of news Netflix wise just came out this past week. Like episodes of Stranger Things are costing upwards of like $30 million per episode. Yeah. Like they really don't have the budget to make like all of these other smaller projects if they're funding stuff like that. Like 30 million an episode is insane.
No, it's crazy. And when I heard that Game of Thrones was making like episodes at 10 million an episode, I was blown away. I was like, there's no way like another TV show would ever top this. But
yeah, and I heard most of the 30 is like for the cast. Like it's a pretty heavy cast budget, so like I don't know. And then I see something like the upcoming House of Dragons kind of going off Game of Thrones. I read an article this week that they're trying to keep their episodes under like 20 million an episode. And I could almost guarantee that show is going to look significantly better than Game of Thrones. I mean, no, or not Game of Thrones, Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things is pretty VX heavy. Yeah. But like I mean, the show's called House of the Dragon, so I'm sure most of that budget's going to dragons. Right. Now. There's going to be a significant uptick versus Game of Thrones.
I would hope. I mean, like 10 million was a lot for Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones looked great even throughout the last season, which we all hated. And then you got House of the Dragon at 20 million an episode. You got Lord of the Rings. You even got Amazon Prime's hidden gem of a fantasy show, Wheel of Time, at like a huge budget as well. But I mean, Jeff Bezos. So
they're planning to this came out this past week as well, that Netflix is gonna do like a cheaper subscription tier with ads, which means that we're just reverting all the way back to television.
Right, it's just straight up going back to cable.
We've gone full circle. Like the appeal of Netflix in like the beginning of the 2010s or late 2000s is like they gathered a bunch of stuff. This was like before they were housing or making their own content, but they had The Office, they had Parks and Rec, they had Friends for a little bit. Like they were the place where like if you wanted to watch all of these televisions, you'd go there. And now it's kind of turned into
they're losing a bunch of hit TV shows that they were once known for to other subscription services.
And now it's kind of turning into like you'd have a cable subscription and then you'd have like on demand. Yep. And now it's turning into like with all of these streaming services and everything each company wanting their own content back. Mm-hmm. It's turning into like now instead of paying for cable and having everything, you're now paying like a subscription for each channel, which is a little ridiculous. Like the price of these subscription services are going up. I feel like some bubble's going to have to burst eventually.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think Netflix is, back when they first started and they had this, not as big of a library as they had now, I think Netflix has just gotten way too big and way too over their heads on some of their, So it just feels like they've lost a lot of quality and they're just upping their quantity. So
yeah,
and
there was a this YouTube video I watched by this YouTuber called Captain Midnight, and he kind of broke this situation down. And his example was Succession versus Russian Doll. Succession being an HBO show, Russian Doll being and I think it just dropped its second season on Netflix. But when Russian Doll dropped its first season several years ago, it was like this big thing. It binged, so people would go to it, watch it. It was like this big thing, and then it disappeared over like a month after its release. Right. And now, like Succession, on the other hand, it being HBO, they kind of had several years in the week-to-week model of slowly building momentum. Right. And now Succession is like one of the primary entries in HBO's catalog currently. Like it's one of the best shows on television,
I think.
And now Russian Doll just came out with season 2 a couple years later,
Nobody's
like recently on Netflix,
Yeah.
and like because of the binge model, it kind of killed it. And I think Netflix is kind of combating that with Ozark. You see they're releasing in 2 parts. We mentioned that a couple episodes ago. This upcoming Stranger Things season is being released in 2 parts. So I think that they're noticing that, but until they fully get their house in order and kind of realize that people want quality over quantity, because they are pumping stuff out.
Yeah, and they're
like, you go on there any given day, there's something new that they've made.
they're in massive debt, aren't they? Like, don't they owe like a lot of money to a lot of different companies and people?
Yeah.
So I think they make I thought I heard this factor if they make like 3 million or 3 billion a day or something like that, just based off of, I'm guessing, subscription services. There can't be anybody else out there who is doing the Netflix mail system anymore. But yeah, no, they're kind of they've kind of been shooting themselves in the foot, I feel like, these last couple years, and it's something that is very noticeable with how I can't really attest to the TV shows. The TV shows are probably Netflix's strong suit, but their movies have
Versus their movies.
their movies are very much. I mean, you on the occasion you'll get a good movie, but their movies are very, they don't lack, or they lack what the TV shows, thrive on. And even in the TV shows, you can binge them all. So I think I think you're right in saying if Netflix adapts this, week to week episode, which a lot of people hate, but I think it's cool.
I've come full circle on it. I really enjoy taking the time each week and like having a day where there's a new episode and then going online and kind of seeing the chatter about it versus like you consume a whole season of Ozark in a day. The next week you remember like where each episode started and stopped. It's just one big glob that you like consumed.
Exactly.
Where I've come full circle because when Netflix started doing like drop everything, it was the coolest thing. And now that other streaming services like Hulu with their FX stuff,
Disney Plus,
HBO never stopped doing it. Yeah, Disney Plus does it. I've come to really appreciate like the week to week stuff.
I mean, I'm looking forward to my Wednesdays and Thursdays with Moon Knight and Halo. So I think Netflix has to take a poll and just be like, okay, if you enjoy this week to week episode, let us know because we'll start doing it. And I think people could come around to embracing that because as of right now, I know a lot of people that don't like the week to week model, but in terms of, building hype around a show and being excited for the show, it definitely serves its purpose well because as soon as it ends, it's nonstop thinking about, okay, what's going to happen in the next one? Like, let's theorize with our friends. Like, let's talk about this. Let's brainstorm what's going to happen. So, what are these? What are these surprise topics?
Oh, you're in for it. I have curated 5 or 6 different headlines that I have found throughout the week. I'm just gonna drop them on you.
Okay.
And I don't want to spend super long on them. This is just like, my thought was like this can just be like bite-sized reactions to these kind of things.
Okay.
I'm gonna start it off with a bit of a heater.
Jeez.
Just a fastball right down the middle. Jason Momoa is gonna star in a Minecraft movie for Warner Brothers, and it's supposed to be live action.
Oh my god, bro.
So live action blockhead Jason Momoa.
Yeah, so they're just gonna shape his head to be a block,
how does a live action Minecraft movie work?
Is he gonna
is the world gonna be symmetrical? Like,
is he gonna wear that light green shirt with the blue jeans?
the Minecraft Steve outfit.
Yeah. He's got to shave his head, and he's got to not remind us of Aquaman and Duncan Idaho from Dune. So
yeah, I saw that headline and it felt like it was computer generated, like an AI wrote that.
No,
The
I
the
actually
Napoleon Dynamite filmmaker Jared Hess is supposed to direct.
which
so,
I feel like we could be surprised with a like Lego Movie-esque film. Like, okay,
if it's more Lego Movie instead of like Emoji Movie,
Yeah,
I think
oh, God, yeah.
I'd be happy.
yeah, no, I
All
agree
right,
with you on
moving on. Second little bit. Jackass 4.5. It's going to be a bunch of outtakes, about 60 to 90 minutes of stuff that didn't make the theatrical movie is coming to Netflix on May 20th.
Hey, that's exciting. Wait, so this most recent movie, Jackass Forever?
Yeah, Jackass. It'll be like all the outtakes and stuff that didn't make the movie.
Okay.
They've done that with all of their previous movies. I don't know if you've seen any of the half movies.
I haven't seen any of the half movies, but I have heard about them. So that's cool.
Yeah, they're a little ridiculous. You see more failure because it's like the not as polished stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's.
I feel like we'd enjoy that. I mean, we saw Jackass Forever together, and we had a ball laughing. So
that was one of the hardest I've laughed in a theater in like a minute.
Oh, we needed that before watching Moonfall that night. So.
Oh yes, we did.
All right, hit me with the third one.
In this is not as fun news.
Oh jeez.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is moving from October of this year to summer 2023.
I've heard June. For June. So.
Yeah.
That's not even like a Morbius delay. That's a whole No Time to Die Top Gun Maverick delay. That's a whole.
So it's moving from, it was supposed to be October 7th, so like 4 or 5 months, and now it's moving to June 2nd, like you said, 2023. But the sequel, because this is part 1, so it'll be Across the Spider-Verse part 1, June 2nd, 2023. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse part 2 is slated for March 29th, 2024, so less than a year.
Do you think that's going to happen?
We'll get the sequel. Realistically, with the rate these are moving around, I doubt it.
Okay.
I bet you that part 2 gets moved back. I mean, I bet you they want to release them that close together.
Yeah.
Kind of ride the momentum of one to the other. I kind of like when they release, like when sequels get released a year, like less than a year after. The Harry Potters did that with part 1 and part 2.
Yep.
The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions did that as well.
I think
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, I think so too, and I think it's not the worst move ever. I think it being released in June of 2023, it could be fun. It could be a fun summer like film. I see it more as a fun summer film than, at least from the initial trailer that we've seen in the theaters now. I don't know. I think it could be supposedly The Flash is coming out next June. So we'll see. We'll see, which is probably leading into another topic that you're throwing at me.
And it's not, but did you see he got arrested again?
Mm-hmm.
That's
what's even more crazy is that Warner Brothers has just not released a statement at all.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Like
no. I'm going to go back to lighthearted.
Okay, good.
Vin Diesel has unveiled the title for Fast and Furious 10, and if you guessed that it would be Fast X, you are correct. So this is removing.
That's honestly pretty clever right there. So
this is coming out May 19th, 2023. So we'll see this before we see Into the Spider-Verse.
Across the Spider-Verse
by 2 weeks. Across the Spider-Verse.
God. Fast X.
So Fast X
with Brie Larson.
Yeah, Brie Larson and Jason Momoa is going to be the bad guy.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did hear about that too.
He's running out of like hunky people to throw in these movies. And this is supposed to be like part 1, right?
Fast X?
Like I heard that he's like billing these last two, 10 and 11, as like
no way they
part 1 and part 2 of the end.
There's no way they ended 10 and 11. I mean,
which would be awesome if they called the 11th one Fast X2. Like that's my dream.
No, the X transforms into 2 1s. They
Oh
went from
yeah,
X to-
Fast 2. Oh my
man.
gosh, this is such a ridiculous franchise.
Is that all the
I love
topics
it.
you had for me?
Yeah, that's all the craziness I could just scrounge up.
Okay. Those are fun. We should do more of those. Just like shotgun random topics like that. Those are fun. So
Yeah. So I guess this segues us into our
main topic.
our movie review.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
What did we watch this week?
We watched Robert Eggers' newest epic called The Northman. I've heard my friends call it The Northman. And
the North Face Man.
I remembered The Northman.
Mm-hmm.
It's man, I'm just gonna read the little synopsis on Letterboxd here. It says Prince Amleth is on the verge of becoming a man when his father is brutally murdered by his uncle, who kidnaps the boy's mother. 2 decades later, Amleth is now a Viking who is on a mission to save his mother, kill his uncle, and avenge his father.
I'm gonna stop right there. Was he on the verge of being a man?
No, wait. Well, maybe
These synopsises are trying to get away with quite a lot, and I'm gonna call them out every time.
Let's edit that and say Prince Amleth is a boy when his father is brutally murdered. He is a young lad when his father is brutally murdered by his uncle. I guess the coming of age for Vikings, and I would know because I lived back then in Norse times.
Yes,
the coming of age
yeah.
for Vikings and just people of Norse birth is, I'm guessing through a ritual of some sort. Vikings, we'll get into spoilers here in a second, but Vikings, the History Channel TV show, it didn't really cover that, so that was a whole new, fresh thing for me, and it was interesting to say the least. Him go through that ritual.
What were your highlights from it?
Oh, from the whole
Non-spoilery.
from the whole movie, I want to say the little action that's in it is amazing. And just absolutely brutal. I have a certain shot that I loved, a certain sequence in general, that we'll get to in spoilers. But I will say what stands out is how well Alexander Skarsgard plays this Viking. I think I think he was born to be a Viking, honestly.
Oh,
just the way he acted, and just he was not scared of, he must have just not been scared of what people would think or what the crew thought on the set when he was acting in some of these scenes. And we'll get to it in a second here. But the score is another highlight for me. The chanting that went on every now and then was just...
Oh, yeah, like the throat singing between this and Dune.
Yep.
Throat singers are having a day.
Yeah, they're having a year, honestly. And I mean, honestly, like just the way Robert Eggers, and I could see this in The Lighthouse, and I can see this in this movie. I haven't seen The Witch yet; it's on my watch list. But the way he plays with shadows is just fantastic. And I don't know the cinematographer. Who is it? Jaron Blaschke.
Yeah, he shot The Witch too.
Okay.
Which the Witch, all of his movies have kind of that similar look. I think he's done all three of Eggers' movies. So yeah, that kind of ties into what you said. Like Eggers and him have like a very distinct style that when you watch a movie.
And I think honestly, Robert Eggers is one of those directors that we're going to hear more and more about this decade because I mean the man is. Right now, for me, he's 2 for 2. The Lighthouse and The Northman are standout movies, and they.
Well, let me one up you. I think he's 3 for 3.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen The Witch yet. It's been on my watch list for forever.
It's gonna scare the shit out of you.
I low-key just want to watch like a bunch of these horror movies that are on my watch list in Spookfest this year. So.
Oh yeah, the The Witch, I don't want to derail too hard, but The Witch has one of the scariest trailers I've ever seen in my life. Like, I remember vividly watching it back in like 2015 and being like, this movie's gonna make me pee my pants, and it did. It did.
Nick, what are some of the things that stood out for you, and then we can get into spoilers.
Yeah, the way Eggers handles cultural mythos, and he did it again with like the 16th century like Pilgrim frontier and the witch, and he did it a little bit like the lighthouse was a little bit smaller because they were like stuck on the island.
Yep.
But the care that he gives the time periods his movie's set in is unbelievable. This is one of the best looking. I don't want to like throw it in with like the medieval genre because I'm a very harsh critic when it comes to like
what's medieval,
that era, because I feel like it just, if it looks off a little bit, it just looks like you got like night outfits from like Party USA or something. Right. And this kind of in the same vein as like the Green Knight a little bit. Like, we have been eating with really good medieval, like old school grimy movies like this, like high fantasy. Like, this is just some good stuff, and the care Eggers gives to it, he, like we just talked about, like his creative style and his the way he makes the picture look is just it was a standout for me. Like, from the opening shot to the end, I was enthralled by the world, and that again just goes like, I am a huge fan and advocate of just shooting on location, and they were filming like in Ireland and in Iceland, and man, it shows.
It looked amazing. And
his co-writer for this, I'm gonna butcher this dude's name. Do you want to say this name?
Let me look here.
I don't know how to pronounce Iceland.
There's no way. It's Sion. I have no idea.
Sion, maybe. But he co-wrote Lamb as well, which is also like an Icelandic movie. Mm-hmm. So Eggers like kind of partnering with an Icelandic writer to make this like Viking epic is like, it proves that he cares for the world that he creates and cultivates.
That's perfectly said.
Yes. And I'll pivot into the performances. Like you said, Alexander Skarsgård, I think, is the most ripped person I've ever seen in my life.
That shot, there's a shot of him going around for promotional reasons, and
ginormous.
The dude is ripped.
Like, did you ever see that like that odd Tarzan movie from like 2016?
I didn't know. Was he?
He got ripped for that, but this was a whole nother level. Like, just like, he looked so primal. Evil when it did like the time jump.
Oh, we'll talk about Primal here in a second. Yep.
I think I watched like the trailer back when it dropped, and I was like, all right, I'm not watching anymore. I'm just gonna see the movie. I completely flip-flopped who I thought his dad and uncle were. I thought Ethan Hawke was his uncle.
Oh, okay, yep.
So when he was like hanging out with him in the first 30 seconds of the movie, I was like,
you're like,
oh, I got that mixed up. Ethan Hawke was great in like the first, what did you say? He was in 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
He was great.
Who's the
Nicole Kidman? Great.
What's the uncle's name? The actor name? I have it right here. Claes Bang.
Yeah, Claes.
Okay.
He was Dracula in that Netflix BBC Dracula miniseries from like 2018. Okay. Yeah. He was great too. I hadn't seen him in much, but he's like a British BBC actor.
I think somebody who could almost steal the show away from Alexander was Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh yeah. She was also great. She comes more into play in kind of the back half of the movie. She makes her appearance
probably
like the first 30, but she doesn't get the meat of her scenes until like the back half, I would say. Willem Dafoe in his like 5-minute scene, awesome. Crazy ritual scene.
We'll get into spoilers here in a second, but you wanna add anything else? General thoughts?
General thoughts? No, this was great.
I actually have a friend who reviewed this. He said, and I agree with him. He said it's somewhere between The Green Knight and Dune, which I agree wholly, because you get what you said, the artistic style and the accuracy that this film depicts its times, like The Green Knight does, with the idea of you know, confronting destiny and serving, you know, and just facing your fate like Paul does in Dune. So
out of those three that you said, I think The Northman is probably the best out of the three.
I would honestly, it has nearly jumped up to number 1 on my top 10 2022 list. I mean, this film blew me away.
This, I don't want to. Well, I have one more thing to say, and then we'll get into spoilers. This, I was researching it because I was like, this movie is Hamlet. And then I looked into it, and this tale of his character Hamlet was the historical basis that Shakespeare used for Hamlet. So this wasn't based on Hamlet. Hamlet was based on this.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
And then
I did not.
You throw
know that.
Lion King somewhere in the mix because that's also basically this movie as well. Yep. Yeah,
that
like almost identical.
That's great, and I think it just goes to show just like how timeless that kind of storyline is. And you know, we've seen a lot, I feel like, based loosely off around that kind of structure, but I think The Northman is one to remember for the 2020s, because this is just so well done. So big props to Robert Eggers and everybody on the team, because literally it felt like everything was cared for. Everything was overseen by the director and the writers, and you know, Alexander Skarsgard, I'm looking at this now, was a producer for it, which I did not see in the credits, so that's awesome too. So all right,
so let's pivot into spoilers. So spoilers happening in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so
Willem Dafoe's decapitated head was
that
awesome.
scene was sweet.
That was so funny.
How he essentially, his spirit transferred into that guy's body, and it sounded exactly like Willem Dafoe. Pretty sure it was, honestly, but the way he was talking to Amleth through that was so cool, man.
So there's a point in after the time jump, after his father gets killed, and we'll start at the beginning and kind of work our way forward. I wanted to touch on the decapitated head. Willem Dafoe's character is in like 5 minutes of the movie, and then
who predicted that
he gets decapitated, and then his head
is saved,
which is saved, and then it makes an appearance later in the movie.
It literally follows the guy who decapitated his head via a messenger of the spirit world, and he just like has this cloth sitting next to him, clearly covering something, and then all of a sudden he's like whoosh, and we're like, okay, that's like, Willem Dafoe.
there was no like, oh, whose head is that? That's Willem Dafoe's head.
You can clearly like tell that it's his head, and it's amazing.
So after his father dies,
which came really quick.
Really quick. I was shocked.
They stripped,
like, maybe
they jumped right from the ritual to the scene where they were walking in the snow.
And the ritual scene is Willem Dafoe's like one scene, and that was basically like his Viking bar mitzvah where he
becomes a man,
where Amleth becomes a man. And then they walk out, and then immediately he just gets smoked by his brother.
I don't think. No, I think it was a small time jump. I don't think it was right after the ritual. It probably
showed them walking out of a building.
Did it? I can't remember.
I'd have to go back. I thought it was pretty good. The way it was, that whole sequence was kind of edited funky.
Yeah, it was funky.
It was like you said, the Fjolnir coming and killing him kind of came out of left field. Like, there was almost no basis at all leading up to it. Like, if I had one small critique, I wish there was like another 5-minute scene between Ethan Hawke.
It felt like that,
and his brother, kind of like butting heads a little bit because it felt really quick.
Yeah, and the chapters. This movie was told through chapters. It seemed like, and that first part did seem like the weakest chapter of the whole story. But I will say that ritual scene was awesome, and I was not expecting them to essentially turn into dogs and drink LSD and
real feral.
Yeah, exactly. And oh my god, if that's not a theme throughout this whole film, holy okay.
Just like primal feral animals.
Fast forward to a couple of my favorite shots. This is when we see older Alexander Skarsgård. But by the way,
because it jumps like 20 years.
I want to say it jumps like 20 years. You're right. I do want to say this. I want to add this. The boy who played young Amleth played young Bruce Wayne in the most recent Batman. So the kid's just raking up money right now.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. So in the few shots that young Bruce Wayne had in the Batman, he was that actor. But anyways, a couple of my favorite scenes that were shot, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot, but this is when the transition happens. Right when that transition happens, we have this overlook on this river with these Viking ships going across, and this camera slowly pans into view, and then like kind of like right as it's hitting the water, a ship comes into frame, and then the camera just zooms straight into Alex just rowing, and then like you see how much, how much he's grown. Obviously, like the man is just pure muscle, and like
it would be shocking if he was like the same size.
Yeah, it's like how are you rowing this boat right now? So I love that. I love there was a lot of like long shots that were drawn over, and this next one I'm gonna get into when they raid the village. There's that shot where it just follows him just cutting people down.
It goes up the wall, over the top, back down. It's like it's a really cool one. I noticed that as well.
And my favorite part in that was when he had the guy up against the house and he just dragged his head along with his sword and just oh my god, bro.
That whole sequence is kicked off by someone throwing a spear at him. He catches it midair, turns, and throws it back up on the wall. Like you kind of touched on this in non-spoilers. This isn't, I would say, like an action movie, but when there is action, it like hits.
It's
like
amazing.
The action is turned up to 11. The violence is turned up. And then when you have those slower scenes, it kind of feels like you earned it because of how intense like the previous action sequence was.
Yeah, right before that raid, they all became wolves essentially, just hounds.
Yeah, and they had like the wolf.
Yeah, which was
head,
so cool.
Like,
what a cool add-on to that. I was wondering the whole time because they cut from that whole ritual by the fire too, when they essentially transformed into beasts, to them sneaking up on this fortress or this village. And I'm just wondering how far away were they so the village wouldn't hear their screams in the forest. Yeah. It's like I don't know if it just sounded way too similar to wolves, but I was just like, there's no way they didn't hear this. Like they just marched 20 miles to this village. But
so in that time jump, Fjolnir, his uncle who stole the throne, had the throne taken away from him, and he and what was left of his village retreated back to Iceland, to a farm where they kind of had a little commune in the hills. So he hears of this because the slaves that they take in that village, Fjolnir's mentioned that he wants them. And so he hears of Fjolnir, kind of sneaks onto the ship as a slave, and then he breaks through once they bring all the slaves. He kind of impresses them.
Yep.
So that they need his services around like the commune that Fjolnir kind of works at.
Yeah, it almost feels like a. It almost feels like. I don't know, just like a. Just like a too good to be true kind of paradise for them, but at the same time, from what we saw in the movie, it wasn't a paradise at all because they had so few materials. And I can't imagine like fleeing from wherever they lived originally to Iceland, where it's just bare nothingness.
Yeah.
Beautiful landscape, just amazing country in general. But like you'll see when you see this movie is that it's just mountains and fields of grass.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but there is nothing, not a single tree anywhere. So,
it's kind of in this valley between it's like this green rolling hill, and they're like right in the middle of it.
Right, and they have their own freaking football field, and they travel to, and I mean, looking back, any other director that directs this movie, or just has this written out, I feel like it would have taken us out of the film if we'd watched that like sporting event scene that Robert Eggers.
I almost wrote in my review that like this movie, given to almost any other director, like you said, would have been sort of goofy.
Yeah. Yep.
But because he commits so hard to the Viking stuff and like the lore of it, it really works. Like it feels earned, and like you're watching history.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what makes this so great, is because how much of this can you question like didn't happen back then. I'm sure, everybody did so much research before this, but in terms of the rituals, what they believed in Valhalla, Odin, the different gods, that shot where the Valkyrie is taking Alexander Skarsgård up, and then it cuts to him in that hot spring really quick, was awesome. And the throat singers that you were saying just made my skin just, I don't know, it just like
like I was being ascended.
Yeah, I was like, this is amazing. And the light shone on her face and whatnot, and she almost looks urethral, like an angel almost, like not beautiful but not scary either. It's just, but anyways, I'm sidetracking here. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about this other than it's your typical revenge story that
you knew that the revenge, like eventually they were going to clash. It's a slow burn train.
Yep.
Slowly just going until like you knew that they were going to clash.
I wouldn't even say it's slow though.
No, I mean that slow in the way that like you're watching this knowing that they are going to fight.
Yep.
Fjolnir and Amleth. The what thing I do want to touch on really quick, the way that he messes with the village is unbelievable. So he gets a sword.
Which, dude, I was watching. I was watching. I was like, this is the most Elden Ring thing ever. And I'm sure Nick was. I was like, I'm sure Nick died at this scene because he enters this chasm and you got this skeleton sitting on this throne, full armored out. And he's got the sword laid across his lap. You can tell the rest. I feel like I kind of stole this away from you, but I was thinking of you the whole time. I was like, this is the most Elden Ring thing ever. He's like rolling. He's like rolling to dodge and like. So
it's basically like like the little light that comes up where once a dead body has like something you can pick up.
Yep.
Yeah, that sequence is cool. He fights like this skeleton for the sword.
Can we talk about the
talk
about the sword name? The sword name is amazing.
The Nightblade. The Nightblade feeds. That was one of the chapter names. That was sick.
So great.
But he can't unsheath the sword during the day. He can only unsheath it at night or at the gates of hell, which is the volcano that's kind of set back.
No, I thought
Iceland.
I thought he can only unsheath it at night, or else he faces the gates of hell.
Well, he unsheathed it during the day there.
No, he didn't.
Because they tried to unsheath it when they find the sword. They couldn't during the day.
Right. But Oh, so that.
But then during the day,
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, I understand now. I understand what you're saying.
at the end,
Yep.
when he fights him. So he and Anya Taylor-Joy, who plays like this pagan witch, they kind of team up, and she helps him.
They fall in love like
Kind of. Oh yeah, they're like a tag team because they lure out like different guards and people important in the community.
She like curses,
and he just borches them. Like at one point, he killed a bunch of soldiers and like put their body parts up to look like a horse. Yeah. He killed Fjolnir's son at one point.
Oh god, that was that was
he at night because they just thought he was a slave. So at night he was just going out like terrorizing this town, which that's my favorite sequence of the movie, is him just like absolutely murking this town.
I liked the little comment he said to the guard who he faced as a boy, with the stubby nose. He said the pup fed at your nose when it was young, but now the wolf will like finish the job or something like that. And the way he killed him was insane, just a sword straight through the face. I think Anya and Alexander Skarsgard's chemistry was really nice, and just it fed into the idea of them just wanting to get away from this, and essentially you're almost rooting against that because you want him to face his destiny. You want him to slay his enemy at next to the lake of fire. Which I love the subtle, like, this is a very much a Norse mythology Viking-esque movie, but you got subtle hints towards Christianity with different comments about how, these Christians are the worst or something like that, and you have that at the beginning, but then, you notice the little comment that he says about meeting his enemy and killing him by the lake of fire, which is a known fact that is an attribute that people will see in hell. There is a lake of fire, and it's clearly said over and over again in this movie, and I mean, it literally says in the gates of hell, which I don't think in Norse mythology they believed in hell. I mean, you either go to Valhalla or you don't. So, and then you have the little subtle hints, as in, if a Viking or a soldier doesn't die with their heart, it cannot be taken to Valhalla, which he took his uncle's son's heart out, and essentially said the most badass line ever. He's like, "How do you know that's your son's heart, but not a random dog's heart?" or something like that. Yeah. And a cool little twist. His mom hated his dad.
Yeah, that was one of the cool. Nicole Kidman in that scene was great.
She just looked ghastly and scary, and she just spoke, and it was almost Ty West X uncomfortable the way she kissed him.
Well, Big Little Lies fans will remember that Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman, were married in that show, and in the movie they are mother and son.
I forgot about that. Yep.
What a little turn for that.
I'm sure Robert was like punching himself after he found out about that, if he even knew that at all. But
like I was just thinking they're thinking of that show the whole time.
Probably,
like,
honestly.
So yeah, I really liked that scene. It was a nice twist because he went to being like, all right, I'm going to liberate you and the family and we can go home.
It sounded like he was going to save...
Your dad is like an asshole.
Yeah. It sounded like he was going to save Gunnar, which was her littlest son, who he already saved in that sporting event.
Oh, did you notice who was in that sporting event? The big guy?
No, I couldn't make out who it was.
That was the Mountain from Game of Thrones.
No way.
Yeah.
Was it actually? Maybe he just had hair, and that threw me off.
He did. He had a beard. He wasn't shaved.
Yeah, maybe that's
the big guy in the other team was
maybe
the
that's
mountain.
what threw me off. That's awesome. That's so great. Yeah, I mean that I was like, yeah, this man is huge. But I didn't put two and two together. That was great. So yeah, like you said, fun little twist. You have essentially what we thought was him going to liberate his mother to, now I hate you, Mom. I wish I could kill you. And then, surprise, 10 minutes later, he does. It almost felt like an accident. And then her son jumps on his back, stabs him repeatedly in the back, and he just throws him off and cuts him.
He murders that whole family. And then, so let's talk about the volcano fight, and then we'll wrap up the review. That was awesome. So he fights Fjolnir in the Gates of Hell, which is that volcano. They got fully nude, like they had a sword, a shield, and they were naked in a volcano fighting each other to the death. It was seriously so awesome. It was like unbelievable. One of the coolest looking scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah, the choreography of that fight too was amazing.
It was brutal.
Because you could
shout out Mustafar.
Oh yeah, yep. I was thinking of that the whole time. I was like, this is if it's on purpose, this is a great callback to something that we all love.
All lava is a callback to Mustafar.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Volcanoes were made because of what George Lucas did.
No, you're right. It's almost like poetic in a sense, just them stripping you bare naked, and it's just like, okay, enough of all this stuff. Like, it's just you and I, like nothing else. Swords, shields. Let's get at it. If I had one teensy, ant-sized little complaint, it ended so quick. It felt like it should have maybe lasted 5 minutes long. I don't know.
But I feel like that kind of a fight, though, like, because they were making contact with skin. Like, eventually, the body, they didn't have armor. Right. Like, eventually, something's got to give.
No, you're right. And
like, because they do end up killing each other. Fjolnir gets a good old stab in, and he gives a pretty awesome. He cuts his Fjolnir's head off clean, but Fjolnir had like cut both of his arms pretty bad and like stabbed him. So he died in the Gates of Hell after basically he liberated the town, killed his entire bloodline, and then died.
Yeah, and essentially was able to save, at the time, his unborn children, plural, that Anya Taylor-Joy birthed. But I thought that last
Luke and Leia. Wow, this is all coming together.
I thought that was cool, that last little shot where you see Fjolnir's head roll into the lava, but then his body falls down, but the sword doesn't come with it, so you know that he got Amleth too. And that was awesome. And you get one more call to the Valkyrie lifting Amleth up to Valhalla, and I think honestly I need to watch it again. I feel like I will catch a lot.
I'm kind of in the same boat.
I feel like I'll catch a lot that I missed the first round through. And if you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend it. I think it's one of 2022's hidden gems, because this opened at what, 30-40 million US?
Less.
And
maybe?
Honestly, it's top.
I thought it was like 12.
It's top 3 2022 right now. You might be right on 12. It's top 3 right now for me.
23.5 worldwide, 12 domestically here in the US. So not great. I'm sure word of mouth on this movie will be pretty good. It's got a pretty high rating.
Yeah.
It'll probably get close to getting that budget back, but man,
I was bummed because
seriously, Go see this movie.
Did you see this in Extreme?
No. There was no offering.
Yeah,
for
they
that.
didn't offer an IMAX for the Northmen down here, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, go see it. Again, I think it's
let's give your rating, my rating, then we'll give Jay's because we have that.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5.
Where does it rank in your 2022 list?
I think I put it as second behind the Batman, and the only reason why that is the case is because I watched the Batman 5 times and I enjoyed it every one of those times. The Northman,
I just watched that.
Yeah, the Northman is, I've only seen once. Plan on seeing it again. The Northman.
Could you see the Northman surpassing?
I can honestly.
Batman?
It almost jumped up to number 1 for me. Just in terms of remembering this movie, it's going to be engraved in my head for a long time, just because of how great the action was, how well paced the story was, how great Alexander Skarsgard was. Just, I don't know, there was something about it when I was reviewing it. I'm like, I'm gonna be thinking about this for the next week or two at least, and I'm just gonna say that it's a hidden gem of 2022, and I think it's got award potential, and if it had as much credibility as the Batman did back in March, I think this would be a contestant for number 1 on my 2022 list, and essentially this year in general right now. So what about you? What'd you give it?
Landed at a 4.5 as well. Thought maybe down to 8.
Okay.
But then when I kind of sat and thought about it, I kept it at 4.5. Maybe another viewing, move it up or down. I loved it. It was great. I have it number 2 on my 2022 list behind Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Which we'll talk about next week.
Which we will talk about next week. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. Jason gave it a good old platinum 5 out of 5.
Which
he wrote a pretty lengthy review on it. Go check that out. Give him a like. He'll need it in this trying time.
That blew my. Are we gonna let him talk about it next time he comes on?
Yeah, we'll give him 30 seconds and we'll time him. And if he goes over, we're muting him.
Yeah, he didn't elaborate on it at all in our chat. He said, I stand by it, and that's it. But he does have a great review on Letterboxd, and he will explain it more next week, and I can't wait. And it was a bummer that he couldn't be here to tell us about it, because he...
Yeah, the one movie Jason enjoyed.
Honestly, the one movie, it's like the second movie he's ever given 5 stars on Letterboxd. So... Yeah, let's wrap this up. So,
you just watched. You got caught up on Outer Range.
I did.
This past week?
And
Severance. You had quite the
Severance. Week. I'm like following in your footsteps. I'm like, oh, Better Call Saul next. Let's do it. Yeah, Severance.
Well, Better Call Saul.
Severance
slaps.
is Apple TV's best show right now. I gotta say,
easily. It was so good.
It blew my mind how well that show does dystopian society.
And that last episode, dude, had me on edge.
Yeah.
Like I was sweating.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the design of The Office, how well both sides of each character played each other in and out, and
it's such a unique idea for a show.
It is
like really, really well done. Glad it's getting a season 2.
So I'll be looking forward to that. Outer Range is great.
Outer Range keeps getting better.
I haven't seen Yellowstone, but from what I heard about Yellowstone, this feels like an almost sci-fi Yellowstone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Brolin's great. I have a couple theories. We can break it down.
I think I can listen
once it's fully out. So I think they're dropping 2 episodes a week.
That's what you said.
And half the season's out. So in 2 weeks
we can talk about it.
We'll kind of give an extended talk about it.
Yeah,
because we have some more shows coming down the pipe too. We have Ozark this weekend, Stranger Things in a month. So we got content.
I think we got 2 more episodes of Moon Knight to go.
Moon Knight 2, yeah. We'll have an extended TV talk in 2 weeks and kind of give our thoughts on all that. which I'm excited for. It's been pretty movie heavy. I feel like we haven't had a season to kind of talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Have you watch any movies?
yeah, I watched a war epic called Brothers. Came out back in 2009. It's got
the Tobey Maguire
Tobey
movie?
Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal. Not the best. If you're curious, it's on Amazon Prime. If you have Prime. I also watched Lars and the Real Girl, which is on HBO Max, and that
you're a freak.
that is a very
you nasty.
That is a very like a Ryan Gosling hidden gem, 100%. He plays such a goofball. He does, but movie. It's so great. The movie just itself is great. I gave it 3.5 on Letterboxd, but it's great. And then I watched one yesterday that we'll talk about next week. It's called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, the new Nick Cage movie.
Yeah.
And I'll give my 2 cents on that next week. But other than that, not much. It's been pretty show heavy for me this past week with Outer Range, Severance.
You kept texting me like, I just binged Severance in a day. I was like, how in the world?
Yeah, and then I texted you like, oh, how did Josh Brolin yada, yada, yada? And you're like, wait, this man is jumping all over the place right now. What about you?
I just watched, or I just finished a book this past week.
Ooh, what book?
Called Tokyo Vice. It's the basis for that HBO Max show.
Yeah, how was that?
The book was okay, really interesting.
What came first? Wait, you said
the book was written first. Okay. It's a real account of Jake Adelstein as he was a white beat reporter for the police in Tokyo in the 90s. Okay. So a lot of Yakuza stuff. Really interesting, fun read. I don't know how much of it's
probably got some
real, but it made me really want to watch the show. So I hear the show's really
sweet.
Good. So I'll probably be starting that.
Yeah, I've heard pretty decent things about the show on HBO Max. So
yeah, Michael Mann directed that first episode.
Nice.
So.
Yep. I'm watching Better Call Saul, so that'll probably occupy me for the foreseeable future.
You're getting into the good stuff too. You're like end of season.
What else have you been listening, watching, reading?
That's pretty much it.
This is
tomorrow. I'm watching Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent for next week. So I think next week we're gonna have kind of a cleanup roundup of everything that we missed in April because there was quite a bit. So I think we will be touching on. All of us should see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I saw Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Film of the Year, Oscars.
I'll probably bite the bullet.
And one of us has to see Ambulance, so we can talk about it. So we'll be covering three.
We don't
movies.
We don't even have to limit it to that 3. We can talk about
3 movies and maybe the season of Ozark if I finish it over the weekend. I might give a quick review. Series overall, honestly, because this is the last 7 episodes.
Yeah. And I will say
and then we'll give some Doctor Strange predictions.
I will say this. I am very excited for Kendrick Lamar's album that is coming out May 13th. So we're about to have a hot May month next month. So we just have a lot of things that we're looking forward to, and I'm very excited. So, including more golf.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to close out this is episode 8 of Podland, not the Northman podcast. It's Podland. I'm your host, Ian, alongside my buddy, Nick. Jason, we missed you today. And
Jason, sorry for doxing you like 7 times.
Jason, we love you, man, okay? And guys, we'll see you next week with April's wrap-up. Be sure to watch the Northman because it will not disappoint you at all.
And if it does disappoint you, you're lying.
And we will block you somehow from listening to this podcast. So,
all right.
Okay, guys. We'll see you next week on Podland. Love you, Mom.